anything about politics. My name is Jared Berenstein, and this is the show where you can ask me anything that you like about politics. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all of your questions, and no one's going to make fun of you for not knowing things. No one's going to make fun of you for not knowing what the filibuster is, or reconciliation, or what a continuing resolution is. If you don't know who Cash Patel or Pam Bondi or uh, Nikki, what is it? Gnome, Christy Gnome. No one's going to make fun of you for not knowing those people. It is perfectly reasonable for a human being living in this country just trying to make ends meet to not know all of the various ins and outs of the government. But if you have any questions about it, this is the place where you can ask all those questions. What's up, Muzz King? What's up, Hadi Kusuma? I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing? So, yeah, any questions about politics, just throw them in the chats. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. This is not a show where people get debated. This is not a show where people get harassed or bullied or made fun of. We don't believe in fighting here or debating. I don't believe in debates. I don't think that they are productive. So I instead am trying to do a new thing where we engage on the substance, where we actually talk about the issues, where we call out the bullshit propaganda where we see it, and actually try to engage with each other in good faith so that we are not just two people who are trying to win an argument. We are two people trying to understand where the other is coming from and maybe learn from each other and maybe actually convince some people to change their minds. What a radical concept, people being able to be convinced, people being able to grow and change and learn. How about that? So yeah, any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat. Simple or complicated. There's no such thing as a dumb question. No one's going to make fun of you. Slam Poetry Enjoyer. Great idea, Jared. Thank you. Half to pieces. I mean, disrespectfully, but you have a hilarious build. What does that mean? Like my body? Does my body look silly or strange? I'm probably more confident in how I look physically now than I have in a long time since I've been going to the gym, and I'm fucking cut like glass these days. Jay Witt 507 says, "What do you think the end result is with the Trump administration?" Nobody knows, Jay Witt, but I will say that there's no certainty in politics. It really just depends on the work that individuals like you and me decide to do. If you want there to be accountability for Trump and everybody that's working with him, then we have to do work because that's not going to happen automatically. The people who have a lot of money and power, it takes zero effort for them to continue skirting accountability and legal consequences. And so in order for us to change that system, in order for us to change that dynamic, we have to do the work. And we have to organize, and we have to put political pressure on individuals and corporations. We got to do the work. Slam Poetry Enjoyer says, "Why should I support either party if they are both funded by AIPAC?" Excellent question, Slam Poetry Enjoyer. So let me answer your question partially with a question. If one party is voting universally with AIPAC's lobbying efforts, and the other party is not voting universally with AIPAC's lobbying efforts, do you think that either of those parties are better, or do you think that any individual within a party voting with AIPAC is completely delegitimizes the party in general? Let me know how you feel about that, Slam Poetry Enjoyer. Hadi Kusuma says, "What do you think about Trump mentioned in the Epstein files?" I mean, we all knew that this was going to happen. You know, people have been paying attention, knew, they've been buddy-buddy for a really long time. They're in thousands of photos together and video clips, and, they referred to each other as extremely good friends, yeah, it's like, where there's smoke, there's fire. You know what I mean? Most of the time. All right, let's see here. Still waiting on a answer from Slam Poetry Enjoyer. Authentically Hearst says, "Republicans are trying to mess up Crockett's eligibility for election for the Senate. Have you seen?" I haven't seen anything specifically, but yeah, obviously, like the Republican Party and their sort of like messaging arm has been doing nothing except for denigrating Democrats, uh, you know, for the last 40, 50 years. You know, it makes perfect sense, whether it is completely made up bullshit or completely reinterpreted bullshit or fair hits. That is all that they do. They care nothing about actually informing people, and they care everything about ensuring the continued success of Republican Party politicians. All right, still waiting on that response. Authentically Her, did that already. Authentically Her says a lot. She made up city accountability. I don't know what those words are. Zach says, how do we make money without stepping on other people? I don't believe that the economy is zero sum. I believe that you can make money without stepping on other people. It's harder though when the laws that exist make it so that if you step on other people, you can be 1,000 times more successful than people that don't step on other people. So, you know, I think that we as consumers need to start spending our dollars more wisely, and I think that the government should start incentivizing companies to actually be beneficial to society instead of being selfish, fucking, wealth hoarders that are only interested in their own generational wealth and don't give a shit about how many people have to suffer and struggle and get hurt and potentially die because of their actions. Muzz King, Kim Buckman, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Alrighty, still waiting for a response from Slam Poetry Enjoyer. Probably not even still here. Probably someone that just wanted to come in here and make it seem like APAC is the most important political issue that's ever existed. Ted says, if everyone went vegan, would this be good or bad for society, not for animals or health? I personally, I think that the evidence is clear that if everyone went vegan, that it would be good for society. Like, going vegan is better for your health. It's better for the climate. Morally, it is, completely benign as opposed to, having a meat eater's diet. I'm like a loosey-goosey vegan. Like, I still eat meat from time to time. I think there's a word for it, reducitarian, So yeah, I'm not going to force anybody to go vegan, but I think the facts of the matter is that the world would be better if everybody was vegan. John Goings says, understand MAGA has started petitions to nominate Melania for a Nobel Prize. All right, good luck with that, guys. Badger75 says, what difference between administration warrant and judicial? I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that a judicial warrant gives you more powers. Like, you can actually enter somebody's home with a judicial warrant, and an administration warrant is just something like, basically like saying, we are looking for that person. Kim Buckman says, but vegan can't have dairy. I believe that is the case, yes. Brian Smith says, do you think Kamala would be a good president not compared to Trump? I do. She's not my first choice, but I think that she's very capable and intelligent, and, she has some policy wins in her past. Yeah, she seems like she's got it together. Party Source says, why does Trump nationalizing elections look like in practice? What does that mean? So basically it would mean that the federal government gets to count all of the votes. They would have control over when elections happen, early voting, mail-in voting, who gets to vote, who doesn't get to vote, what registration looks like, which votes count, electoral systems, shit like that. Party Source says that is a terrifying prospect. It is a terrifying prospect. Thankfully, I believe that this is in Article 1 of the Constitution, is that the federal government can't do this. Okay, XXZZ says, where are your videos about the Palestinian genocide? I have some. You can look for them, I suppose. Brian Smith says, why did she lose so badly then? There's a lot of people who have theories about that, Brian Smith, and depending on who you are talking to, it really depends on like what their agenda is. Progressives will tell you that she was too close to the center. Centrists will tell you that she was too progressive. There's a bunch of different theories. And I believe in my theory, and I think there's a lot of data to support it. So if you really want to know why I think she lost, I think the biggest thing was incumbency bias. Like, every political party that was in power in the 2023-2024 era suffered electoral consequences because people were upset about the post-COVID economy. That was not Biden or Kamala Harris's fault. It was the Trump administration's fault because they are the ones that allowed COVID to run rampant and fuck up supply chains and shit like that. So yeah, whether you were left, right, or center, everybody was mad at you. And in America, the Democrats were technically in charge, even though Republicans had the House and shit like that. So yeah, people were mad at whoever was in charge. I think there's a bigger issue there, though, which is misinformation and propaganda. There was a ton of billionaire cash being poured into the campaign, both legally and illegally, in order to skew the narratives to either convince people to vote Republican or not vote at all. I think that is one of the central issues in American politics. How do we deal with this onslaught, this deluge of right-wing propaganda and misinformation that is convincing people to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all? It is a massive problem. It is unprecedented. It is insidious. And I guarantee you that you or somebody that you care about is believing something that is untrue because of it. You know, I have a buddy, very smart guy, history major in college. We chat politics all the time. We are aligned on many things. And then he said something the other day where I was like, that is wildly inaccurate what you just said. And I know exactly where he got it from. I know he got it from a pool of videos and political commentators who were sold this lie or were paid to put out this lie. And then it sounds kind of true, so everybody just kind of accepted it, you know? All right, Solch says, what's you, man? Good to see you again. Good to see you, too. John Abbott says, an administration warrant is issued by an agency manager. It's basically a memo saying this person is acting on behalf of the agency, but has no constitutional authority behind it, since it doesn't meet the constitutional requirements of reasonableness that judges have to meet for signing a warrant to overcome the Fourth Amendment. Excellent. Thank you for that, John Abbott. I appreciate that. Plozma said what? He said that Democrats had so many chances in the past to codify Roe versus Wade, and that is historically inaccurate. Lukia says ICE ? I'm against them, I suppose is what you're asking. Farida says Greenland. We should leave it alone. Lukia says Trump. I also don't like him. Carl W says, do you think the midterm report is going to have any sort of impact at all with the current administration? Can you be more specific about which midterm report you were referring to? I'm not really sure what that is. Plozma says, thoughts on dialectical materialism. Can you dumb that down for, I mean, I know what it means. For anybody else that might not know what those words mean together, you know, I could explain it to everybody, but I'm busy. Gaslight Gay People Girl Boss says, are you in crypto, Jarrett? No, I am not. Will says, a dude deported by baddie Latina. I don't think enough people are talking about how ICE is deporting so many fucking baddies. So many hot, spicy Latinas are getting sent to detention centers, and all these dudes now have dry dicks. And I think that is probably one of the greatest crimes the Trump administration has committed here in this culture. You know, where are we going to get our fatties without Latinas? You know, I feel like what I'm saying could potentially be offensive, but I think people understand I'm being ironic. All right, Miguel Biero says, what do you think about Andre Ventura? I don't know who that is. Matt says, does this guy have his own opinion or just the same opinion as every other liberal? I have my own opinions. Let's see here. Fletch Lives Again says, Jarrett coined to the moon. That's very funny. Spell my name correctly, though, next time. Carl W. already did that one. John says, why care about politics when it is all a lie and they are all intertwined with each other anyways? Because that's not true. John, are you even still here? Because the thing you just said was wildly inaccurate and also is the exact same narrative that Republicans and billionaires want you to believe so that people don't actually go out and vote. Let's see here. User a whole bunch of numbers says, holy soy. I don't know what that means. Summerfest says, we had a true conservative and progressive parties. Both Republicans and Democrats are hard to vote for. I completely disagree. I think the Democrats are easy to vote for. Let me know if you are still here. Happy to discuss that. Vaga War Production says, Jarrett rug pull shitcoin when LMFAO. I mean, if I could target my shitcoin to specific communities, I would not mind rug pulling them. Plozma says, who are your top 3 US presidents? I don't really know. Shay Cruel, good to see you again, says, thoughts on Marjorie Taylor Greene saying MAGA is/was all a lie? I mean, how real is what Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing? I have no fucking idea. But the things that she is saying are accurate these days. Matt says, reading random comments now. I mean, I have 90 people watching over here and a bunch of people watching over on other channels, so I'm not really sure what you're expecting me to do, Matt. Maybe you want to actually be a part of the conversation instead of just throwing shade. Plosma says, how is genocide easy to vote for? Plosma, I can understand why you might feel strongly about this, but I think that you should recognize that there are things such as more genocide and less genocide. And the Democratic Party was the party of less genocide. I guarantee you that there are people in Palestine right now who, if they could go back in time and beg on their hands and knees that more people voted for Kamala Harris, they would. Not to mention all of the people who have been murdered or beaten or tortured by ICE. They would beg you. They would beg you to vote for Kamala Harris. Right. Fogover Production says, Jared saved the billionaire's crypto scam that he dumps 8 hours after it drops. Yeah, if I could get exclusively billionaires to buy my shitcoin and then rug pull them, abso-fucking-lutely. Dan Blackwood is, the thing is, MAGA is a lie, but not for any of the reasons Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks. Did she state why she thought MAGA was a lie in that interview, Dan Blackwood? Because I only heard the clip that she said that that it was a lie. JRYP says, do you think we will actually have midterm elections? Yes, we will. The president does not get to decide when we have elections or when we don't have elections. That is up to us, the people, and our state and local governments. Super Sage says, guess whose family decided to move out of state while they were in college in the States? That's not about politics, but I don't know. Summerfast says, I have limited text to work with. Okay, I forget what we were talking about. Skybear TV says, what does the 99% have to do? What does the 99% do about the abuse of the 1%? Excellent question, Skybear. So that's what I call the work. And the work is a bunch of different things. It is talking to people in real life. It is political pressure on your representatives and corporations and business leaders. It is organizing and joining groups that are already doing this work. It is boycotting and striking and protesting. So yeah, there are 100 things to do. You obviously don't have to do all of them, but one of the things that we should all do is recruit other people to join us in this work, because the more people that do the work, the less work that we all individually have to do. Nick says, why didn't Nick Fuentes have a show last night? I have no idea. Probably doing something racist. Whitney Rose says, have you had any discussions on the recent $10 billion lawsuit that Trump filed? I mean, we've talked about it on the live stream, Whitney. It seems pretty cut and dry. It's like obviously the most double-handed corruption stealing of American taxpayer dollars. He is deciding to sue the government, and he is the government, so he gets to decide to settle for the American people. Like, it's so fucking psychotically, blatantly putting his hands into our pockets and taking our money and putting it into his own pockets. And if you're a woman, he's probably going to do some feels while he's in your pockets as well, because he's a fucking creep. Okay, John says, Rothschilds run the world. Jeffrey Epstein admitted it, called Trilateral Commission. So Rothschilds is like in the conspiracy theory realm. It's also like a little leaning towards anti-Semitism. So I would encourage you to step away from that. We can have other conversations here. All right, somebody, hold on a second. I had a comment that I wanted to get to here. Plosma says, the people murdered under Democrats, what would they say? I mean, if somebody who was murdered under Democrats is going to find out that their friends or family would have survived under Democrats, but were instead murdered because Republicans were in charge, they would have done the same thing, Plosma. I mean, you can miss me with this both sides nonsense, my guy. Like, I'm glad that you're here. Let's have a civil discussion about this, but better is better and worse is worse. You know, better is better and worse is worse. I would much rather have less genocide than more genocide. Right? Fogwar Production says, do we owe the tinfoil hats an apology for what we've learned about the island? I don't think so. Like, I was never out there saying that none of this shit was real. I was out there saying we don't know. And all evidence suggests that Trump is intimately involved with this. Super Sage says, why are states allowed to ban ranked choice voting? I think it works well. Because states are allowed to run their elections however they like. And I don't think that they should ban ranked choice voting. And I believe there are more blue states that allow ranked choice voting than there are red states. I need to look into that, but that's me shooting from the hip. So, yeah, states are allowed to run their elections however they like. BB Fan says, how do we get corporate Democrats to listen to progressive Democrats? We need to make them lose their primaries to progressive Democrats. But here's the thing. Corporate Democrat is still better than regular-ass Republican. So, you know, you gotta recognize when you lose elections. You know, like I wanted Katie Porter for Senate. I got Adam Schiff instead. I like Adam Schiff. He's just not my progressive champion that Katie Porter was. But I voted for Adam Schiff because better is better and worse is worse. Ms. Weaver, Muzz King, Kim Buckman, Book Hooker. What a fun name. Thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. All right, JC says they're both a disaster. Who's both a disaster? If you're saying Republicans and Democrats are both a disaster, I disagree with that completely. Democrats are way better. Democratic politicians are way better than Republican politicians. You're saying that Katie Porter was a disaster? Katie Porter's great. There are no criticisms of Katie Porter. What are you talking about? Cerebus says that he wants it to be easier to steal and have no oversight over voters. That is true. That is what Donald Trump wants. 37 Lucas says, what do you think of Spain's prime minister trying to control social media? I think that we have let social media run rampant for far too long. And so I approve of any country's government regulating social media, whether that is banning children under a certain age or stopping X from pushing child pornography and shit like that. Lindsay Reed, Muzz King, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And you know what that means, everybody? That means that it is Finger Hearts O'Clock. The best time of the day. Finger Hearts O'Clock. All right, Cerebus says regulations is not the same as censoring. All right, Cerebus. I generally agree with that, but I mean, you'll have to be more specific. BB Fan says, how do we get Schumer and Jeffries to grow a spine? We need to put political pressure on them. Schumer and Jeffries are political animals, and they are trying to hold together a coalition that is center left to progressive left, and that can be very difficult. And sometimes they have to say milk toasty things that are, that make it appear as though they have zero spine. I personally believe that that is wrong for this moment. I understand, though, like some people believe that there's like some, nefarious ulterior motive. I'm pretty sure that they are the way they are because they're trying to win elections for Democrats and they're trying to hold together their coalition. Again, I think they're doing it wrong, but I understand. I think that people are being a little hyperbolic about their ulterior motives. But yeah, we need to lose them their primaries. We need to put political pressure on currently elected Democrats to vote for different speakers of the House. And then we need to recognize when we lose. And when centrist corporate Democrats win, we have to recognize that better is better and worse is worse. Let's see here. BB Fan says, all right, did that one already. Foghorn Production says, do you think Trump's FBI was/is lying about the 2017 Las Vegas massacre? I've heard some conspiracy theories about this, and I don't put it past them at all. The FBI was a little more legitimate under Trump in his first term than it currently is. Like, obviously, under Kash Patel, we can't trust a single fucking thing that the FBI is saying or doing. But Christopher Wray was generally a pretty straight shooter. I think he was in charge of the FBI at the time, right? I don't really remember. But yeah, it's possible. It's definitely possible. J4 says, which states are up for grabs during the primary for Democrats? I'm not 100% sure. I haven't dug into it, but they might have something on that on the Vote Save America website. So I might give that a go. Let's see here. N4G says, not a question, but I believe the whole left versus right was created by elites to split us humans up. So I do think that you have it a little bit right there, N4G. Because it is true that getting voters to fight amongst themselves is doing nothing but help the elites skirt responsibility for the ways that they are ruining everybody's lives. But it is not true that that extends into the actual political parties, because there are massive differences in people's lives depending on who is in charge. When Democrats were in charge, we passed the Affordable Care Act, which there are people alive today because of. And when Republicans are in charge, they passed abortion bans, which have killed women, pregnant women who wanted to have children, not even trying to have abortions. Abortion bans killed pregnant women. So yeah, there is a difference to the political parties. There is a difference for who is in charge. Thank you, N4G. I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic, but I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that as what do you call it? I'm going to take that in the best possible light. Cole says, are you a communist? I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist, and I'm also not a capitalist. Plosma says, imperialism remains under both parties. Plosma, I am getting the sense that you are not here in good faith, because I am giving you tons of examples of how better is better and worse is worse, and how Democrats are better than Republicans, and you are just refusing to acknowledge, accept, or react to any of the individual things. It's like you have a script that the Republican Party gave you that is, say these things to de-incentivize people from voting and being involved in the political process. It's sus as hell, Plozma. It is sus as hell to not respond to a single fucking thing that I have said, except with statements that I have literally already disproven in the live stream. Consider yourself sus. If you do not ask a question with your next comment, I'm going to boot you. Alrighty. Plozma says, I agree that Democrats are better than Republicans, but what I'm saying is true. But it doesn't sound like that, Plozma. And anybody that tells me the shit that you've said and then qualifies it with but I vote for Democrats, I find that to be extra sus, because you're saying I'm one of you. And yet I am trying to convince people of these narratives that de-incentivize people from being involved in politics. You know? All right, Tad says, how do you feel about ICE? I'm against them. Doodle says, why are all politicians lying, thieving bastards? Not all politicians are lying, thieving bastards, Doodles. And when you paint them all with the same brush, you give cover for the worst ones. If there are two politicians to choose from, and one of them is regular and one is a serial killer, and you say all politicians are lying scum, you are giving cover for the worst one. You are making it seem like they are both equally bad choices. Alrighty, let me get back into some of these YouTube and Twitch comments. Josh Sarro says, how did the Democrats not have the opportunity to codify Roe versus Wade? Democrats have never had a filibuster-proof majority of Democrats who were pro-choice and who were willing to put their name on the line to sign pro-choice legislation. The only time we had a filibuster-proof majority in recent history was in 2008. And in addition to Obama wanting to do healthcare instead, in addition to feeling as though Supreme Court precedent would protect Roe versus Wade, not all 60 of those Democratic senators were willing to put their name on the line to protect Roe versus Wade. Not all of them probably wanted to. So there you go. Brian Barbita, yes, I saw your comment. I have not seen your DM on Instagram yet. Alrighty, Average Joe. Oh, Solch says, and the sad thing is the department he was suing was under his control when it was leaked, so maybe he should have been a better boss. Yeah, for real, fucking man. Average Joe says, my opinion is that any elected official that votes to send military support to any nation state that engaged in human rights violation does so for one of two reasons. They're financially incentivized, or just for the love of the game. Where do you fall within this dichotomy? I mean, I think that they are sometimes politically incentivized, you know? Like, the road is littered with the bodies of politicians that tried to stand up to Israel and AIPAC, so... excuse me. Yeah, so some of them are doing it for political expediency and ease. Ready, Average Joe. I'll get to that one in a second. NG4 says, do you think capitalism is the best economic system or not? I don't think it's the best. I think a mixed model is best, like they have in Sweden, Norway, and Canada. We need more communism, we need more socialism, and less capitalism here in America. And let's be clear, we already have some communism. Every employee-owned company is essentially communist. And we already have some socialism. Paved roads, the military, fire departments, public education, that's all socialism. I just think we need a little more socialism and a little more communism and less capitalism. Okay, BB Fan says, isn't the filibuster something that we should keep? Doesn't it help us when we are in the minority? So yes and no, BB Fan. Like, obviously, when you have a president like Trump who is acting psychotically lawless, and a growing majority of a similarly psychotic aligned Republicans in the Senate, the filibuster is saving our lives and saving our democracy. So yeah, we need it for now. But in cases where it is more beneficial to allow the party to pass legislation that will be unpopular and then let that lose them their elections, I think the filibuster has done us all a disservice. An argument could be made that when you give Republicans that ability, that they will pass the kind of legislation that will be bad for people, but will not register with people and will not translate into electoral consequences. I think that plus Democrats being able to pass legislation without the filibuster that people would like would move the needle. aside from the fact that getting rid of the filibuster would allow Democrats to pass electoral reforms that would fix some of the inequities in our electoral systems. Excuse me. Okay, Tensuno says, are psyops a real thing? 100%, mostly perpetrated by the billionaire class and the Republican Party. Awesome Sauce says, the thing about capitalism is its effectiveness is measured by economy and not society's well-being. That is accurate. Paulino says, why are you promoting disinformation? The Marxist ideology didn't work in practice till now. I don't know what you mean by till now, but I am not promoting disinformation. Ira says, stopped to inform the monks and walk the 11th. I don't know what that means. Fogwar Production says, how can states like yours and mine in the CRIC better manage the Colorado River system? I have no idea. That's way over my head, Fogwar Productions. Iris says, can help shift the negative state of the world, even if it's just a bit. Again, there were too many words I didn't understand in your statements. All right, Wander and Jair says, do you think they should charge per word those who talk in politics? I say 10 cents a word. No, I talk in politics. Plosma says, Democrats' failed neoliberal policies got us Trump. We need to change before more Trumps arise. Plosma, I'm tired of your nonsense, so I'm getting rid of you. See you later. All right, John868 says, your views are in the minority. I don't know that that's true, and I don't think that you know that either. Solch says, do you think we could ever ask the United States to pass a law that if a politician is caught lying, they're immediately removed from office or caught telling blatant lies? I like the idea. I think that it is prone for misuse. Like, imagine how the Trump administration would be misusing that specific legislation, like in this moment. I think the devil's in the details. I think that there's a difference between misspeaking and lying. I think there's a difference if you said 2.4 and it's actually 2.3 versus, like J.D. Vance calling Good and Pretty domestic terrorists. Like those are obviously different kinds of lies. N4G says, do you think social democracy is a good economic system? I think it's the best. Yeah, I 100% believe in the economic populism that we are seeing from democratic socialist politicians like Mamdani and AOC. Like, that is where I stand politically, firmly, with both feet. John868 says, do you believe in legal immigration? I do believe in legal immigration. Are you asking me, John868, if I believe that people should have the ability to immigrate to America legally? Then yes, that is the case. I believe that immigration is net positive for countries, and so we should allow that to happen. Mon says, immigrant detention centers, who pays, who collects? American citizens pay, Trump and his billionaire buddies collect. Fog War Production says, do you think depolarization is a position Democratic candidates could successfully run on? That's a really good question. Because I think that there's a difference between depolarization and the kind of return to normalcy, reach across the aisle, business as usual kind of politics that we were seeing from the Democratic Party during the Obama and Biden administrations. Like, you got to go out there and call bullshit when you see it. You can't sit there and go, I am going to work with my Republican colleagues while they're going on Fox News and calling you a fucking, baby killer, socialist, communist, fascist, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like 100% I think that politicians should be calling out the divisive rhetoric that we are hearing from right-wing politicians and right-wing talking heads. But I think that they also have to be running clear-eyed. Like, there is a difference between Democratic politicians and Republican politicians. And to all the people who have voted for Republicans in the past, you are not bad people. You are welcome in our coalition. But let's be clear: the political party that you have been voting for has been screwing you, and it's been screwing all of us. They have been lying to you. They have been hurting you. They are actively making your life worse. Allow us to make the case that the Democratic Party can make your life better and easier. All right, N4G says, is it better to have high taxes and many social services or low taxes and fewer social services? I say high taxes so long as it's a progressive tax structure. Like, I don't think that high taxing the poor and working class is beneficial, is as beneficial as taxing the billionaire class. Awesome Sauce says, do you know of the quote titled First They Came? Yeah, I believe it's a poem. It's a poem. I forget what the name of the poem is, but yeah, first they came for the blanks, and I said nothing because I wasn't a blank. Then they came for the other blanks, and I said nothing because I wasn't one of those other blanks. And then they came for me, and no one was left to speak for me. Mountain says, if a leader declares war, isn't it fair that the leader actively joins the combat? I think so. Chris 10 says, we want universal health care, equality, and lessen the wealth inequality gap. I want that as well. Ford, 1967 says, what do you think of Super Earth wanting to attack Cyberstan? I don't know about, that sounds like DC, right? Is that the DC, politics of the DC universe? Awesome Sauce, somebody put on TikTok recently that there's another poem that's longer, but they like better, called The Hangman, or it's called like For Who the Hangman Comes or something like that. And it is longer, but it is cool, and it sort of like flushes out a lot more of those themes that are in that poem. Ready. RC76598 says, do you believe that our current tax rates are justified by our current social services? No, 100% no. Atlas Odyssey Travel says, is it not reasonable to lean right because you rather have the lower taxes because Social Security won't reach us? I think it's a little misinformed, Atlas, because the Democratic Party is not trying to raise your taxes. They are trying to raise the taxes of the 0.1%. Like, they don't think that Elon Musk needs a 5th yacht and a 10th mansion. They would much rather his money be used to fund Social Security so that you can have Social Security, you know? Right, Sorry for Tomorrow says, every revolution seems impossible at the beginning, and after it happens, it was inevitable. 100% and accurate. John868 says, do you believe in life after love? I certainly do. Atlas Odyssey says, SS is social services. All right, well, it could have just as easily been Social Security. And I mean, social services, even if you do not participate, they reach everybody. You know, food kitchens reach the wealthy by not having to see people on the street who are dying of hunger. Universal health care reaches people that pay for private health care because it means that there are not diseases running around rampant and mutating and becoming more dangerous and more transmittable. Let's see here. Atlas Odyssey Travel says, you weren't wrong, LOL, just clarifying. Oh, yeah, no, you know, but I think that point is important as well. Just because you are not using a specific public utility does not mean that its benefits do not reach you. Okay, Solsh says, Average Joe says, false equivalency is the term you're looking for. I don't remember what I was talking about when you made that point, Average Joe, but I'm confident that you were spot on. Solsh says, do you think we could ever, all right, did that one. Average Joe said, you just said Cuck Schumer and Robot Ends Jeffries are trying to keep together centrists and progressives. I would push back by claiming they're trying to force progressives to fall in line. What's your response to that claim? I think I think an argument could be made. I think that it is really easy to make that. I think that it's really easy to make that assumption based on what you were seeing. I am not going to die on that mountain. I am not going to die on the mountain that centrists wish the progressives would just go away. I do think that they should be doing more to support the progressive politicians that are within their party and lean more into the progressive politics. However, I think an argument could be made, and again, I'm not making this argument, I'm not dying on this hill, that Schumer and Jeffries believe it is more politically beneficial to both progressives and centrists to speak the way that they are. Where they believe that electing a centrist in a deep red state will still help the AOCs and Bernie Sanderses out there. Again, I'm not 100%. I'm not going to die on that mountain. I just think that it's a possibility. Sav says, are you my friend, Savvy? Do you just have a baby, Sav? Are you my buddy? Sav says, why are people angry about legal action being taken towards people who committed a crime? Why are people angry about legal action being taken towards people who committed a crime? I mean, I guess that really just depends on what you're referring to, Savvy, because some people will look at ICE murdering Renee Goods and Preddy and say that was legal action being taken against people who committed a crime. But other people would argue that the people who were murdered we're not committing a crime, and that, unilateral murder by ICE officers and CPB is not, what do you call it? Is not legal action. So yeah, I guess it just depends on what you're referring to. Average Joe says, my false equivalency comment was in response to the commenter claiming that all politicians are the same. 100%, my guy. John868 says, have you picked a name for the baby yet? No, we have not. Looking for Friends says, hey, mate, I got a question from Georgia. What do you think about Russian aggression? I'm against it. And I think it's really strange that so many people within the Republican Party, both politicians and talking heads like Tim Pool, seem so buddy-buddy with Russia and seem so intent on essing Putin's D. MMA Conversation says, nothing barely changes no matter who's in charge. That is wildly inaccurate, MMA Conversions. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which was only possible because people voted for Democrats. And there are women who are dead today because of abortion bans that were only possible because people voted for Republicans. The parties are different. Different things happen when different people are in charge. Reap Ginn says, do you think Trump is hiding a lot of information about the Epstein files? Without question. I haven't dug through the files personally. I have other things to do. My wife is pregnant. But I did hear on a podcast today that one of the documents that was released in this most recent tranche was an email where the sender's name was redacted, and the content of the email made it clear that the sender was a perpetrator, that the sender was somebody who was actively involved in the PDF activities of Jeffrey Epstein. Why redact that name? Why redact that name? That is not a victim if the content of the email makes it clear that they are perpetrating the offenses. So yeah, I think it is obvious that the Trump administration is so busy shielding him and his billionaire buddies that they are accidentally not redacting victims' names and leaking their nude photographs. RC76598 says, thoughts on the abundance agenda. I believe in the abundance agenda. I read Abundance by Ezra Klein, and I think that there are some really good points in there, but there are also some absolutely wild fucking statements in that book that I'm like, I see the point you're trying to make here, my guy, but it's a bad look. There's a sentence in there that my jaw dropped where Ezra Klein goes like China is an authoritarian government, but they also have high-speed rail. And I'm like, what? Do you understand what you're advocating for when you say shit like that, Ezra Klein? So, yeah, I think that Josh Shapiro has done a really good job of sort of like enacting that model. But I also think that we need the other stuff. I just think that we need to make sure that bad faith actors are not abusing regulations and make sure that we are prioritizing regulations towards the common good. So, for example, there's a regulation that stalled a lot of construction of either new housing or high-speed rail in California that said that governments need to prioritize hiring, contractors that are, not owned by straight white men, that, have diversity and inclusion as part of their mandate. And I think that is, a great goal to have, but not at the, not at the altar. That we shouldn't sacrifice our high-speed rail and our housing in the middle of a housing crisis for that. If you can do that, great, but do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, So yeah, like with most things in left-wing politics, it should be both. It should be both the abundance agenda and, utilizing regulations so that apartment buildings don't collapse. Okay, Chris 10 says, look into the Calendar Girls private DJT, used his fingers, was removed, but screen captures are available. I mean, that sounds, that tracks for me. I do not have the time and energy to dig into those files and that specific claim. But forward me any news breakdown on that specific thing. Digital Key says, was Jeffrey Epstein a spy? I don't know if he was a spy or if he was just, working with spy agencies because he was able to blackmail powerful and rich people because he had evidence of them doing massively inappropriate and illegal things. Economic Democracy says, abundance wants to surrender what should be people-led and give it to the market instead, that's bad. I completely disagree with that. Economic democracy. Did you read Abundance? Economic Democracy? Let me know in the comments. And if my mods see them responding to that and I miss it, then please let me know. Sav says he openly said that he was Mossad. I mean, he's not a. We can't really trust everything that he says, you know. AJ Gibbs says liberals are opinionated but too scared to debate anyone. I'm not too scared to debate anybody, AJ Gibbs. I just don't believe that debates are productive. I would much rather have a conversation with you about why you believe the things that you believe instead of us arguing and you just trying to win and get a clip for your social media of you owning a lib. Cerebus says ISIS very much exercising outside of policy with the intent to inflict harm. Yes, completely agree with that. No arguments here. Jeb Hatfield says, me, anything about politics? Yeah. Sowell says, you said the fraud worse than Minnesota somewhere. Where was this? I know it was worse in Texas. It may have been worse in other states. Sorry for Tomorrow says, he's not a debate streamer. There are plenty of them live, though. That is accurate. I am not a debate streamer. All right. Kane Oss says, thoughts on Department of Justice removing e-files as we speak. They're clearly covering for Trump and his buddies. Matador says, what is government structure of DPRK? I don't really know what DPRK is. Mon says, do you think 1% are using government power for profit? Yes, 100%. Italiana, great to see you again. Cerebus says, no panel, no debate. This is a commentary channel. I mean, no, the channel is Ask Me Anything About Politics. I'm answering people's questions about politics. Jeb Hatfield says, do you think any action will be taken against the people in the files? I believe that the Republican Party and Donald Trump will try to use the information in the files to hold legally accountable their political enemies, whether the files prove that they were doing legal things or not. So maybe there are Democrats or reporters or whatever that Donald Trump hates in those files, and there is evidence of their criminality. Donald Trump will 100% instruct his DOJ, which, by the way, he should not be doing. He should not be just instructing his DOJ to do fucking shit. That's not what the president's supposed to do, and it's not what Stephen Miller's supposed to be doing. And if that is true, if that is accurate, then 100% send those fucking people to jail. But I don't have faith that Trump is not going to use this to go after people who are not in the files, or use the information to go after his buddies or Republicans. If we want that, if we want free accountability, not free, but fair accountability for everybody, left, right, or center, then you need to elect Democrats into the federal government. And you have to give the Department of Justice back to the Democratic Party, because that is the only party that is willing to put their own team in jail. Alrighty, let's see here. Big Raspberry says, should billionaires exist? No. Melissa says, I agree. Debaters yelling at each other gets so annoying. 100%. RC says, DPRK is, the Democratic Republic of North Korea. Why don't you just say Democratic Republic of North Korea? You know, sometimes I feel like people use acronyms because they're trying to prove how stupid I am, as opposed to actually asking questions, you know? Because, yeah, if you said North Korea, I would have been like, you know... Matador says, what is the government structure of North Korea? It is a dictatorship. Sorry for Tomorrow says, they will have to be completely overhauled, 100%. Happy Thursday to you, RK. Greg Delory says, it's all right, everyone. I'm here. This live stream is now the best worldwide. Thank God Gregory's here. We were dragging. We were not the best live stream, but now it is. Yo Mama says, DPRK is a very common term. Okay, but I hadn't heard it before. If you had said the Democratic Republic of Korea, I would have known that you were referring to North Korea. But I just did not know that abbreviation. So fucking, you know, send me to jail. Send me to stupid jail. I guess I'm an idiot, everybody. Congratulations, you owned a liberal. Congratulations, you owned a lib. You proved to a lib that he's stupid. Beetle says, what's the government structure of Iraq? Ooh, I actually don't really know what the government of Iraq is like right now. Yeah, foreign policy is not my strong suit. Yo Mama says, it's okay, but I don't think the abbreviation is a gotcha. I'm not saying that that specific person did that, but I do think that some people do that. Hilarious. Where are the Flamingos says, how are we feeling about the plastics being mass produced? You know, I keep on seeing reports about new types of plastics that are being developed that actually biodegrade and that aren't terrible, like they don't just like dissolve in your hands the first time that you use them. I don't know where that is as far as like mass production is concerned. Are we able to, like, is Ziploc doing that shit yet? I have no fucking idea. I just know it exists, and the government should be supporting that and should be subsidizing that and assisting in the infrastructure of mass producing it instead of what the Trump administration is doing, which is just subsidizing and doing cover for oil billionaires because that's who his buddies are. Morton says, "Why would anyone say the Democratic Republic of North Korea when they can say DPRK? I mean, you could also just say NK. That's shorter than DPRK." You're kind of proving my point here, you know? I was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I didn't say you, I just said some people. But the fact that you didn't put NK and instead you're doing the straw man about typing out Democratic Republic of North Korea, you know, sus as hell. Carmine says it won't pin my comments. Oh no. Well, I mean, were you trying to pin somebody else's comment? Murray the Flamingo says I'd be cool with new biodegradable plastics or only use recycled plastics. I mean, the problem with recycled plastics is that they're single use. Like, you're able to turn recycled plastic into one other thing, basically. I learned that watching John Oliver. Big Raspberry says, do you support Israel? I support the citizens of Israel the same way that I support the citizens of Palestine and France and Germany and Sweden and Russia and Iran and Iraq. I do not support the government of Israel. Netanyahu is a war criminal. He is guilty of perpetrating a genocide. But I also do not support Hamas. Where are the Flamingo says, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Fog War Production says, they thought I was the Stasi way I'm cracked at that DDR. What? Somebody clean that up for me. Z Garde, great to see you again. Lemmy Gardenmeister, great to see you again, says there was corn-based plastics years ago, but that increased food prices, little ethanol. Ooh, interesting. I'd be curious to see. Because here's the thing, like, I wouldn't mind subsidizing corn plastics if they were biodegradable and they work better than whatever biodegradable plastics we are currently using. Like, I won't tell you the company that I use for my biodegradable plastics, but they're not great. You know, like, my wife has demanded that we no longer use their tall garbage bags because they, you know, we might as well be trying to hold our garbage in a Wish, you know. But the sandwich bags are okay and the smaller garbage bags are okay. But yeah, you know, once we can get plastic that works just as good, if not better, than our current plastics, then it's going to be game over. What I'm concerned about is the Trump administration, who's clearly in bed with the oil lobby, blocking all of these great technologies from getting mainstream adaptation because he doesn't want his oil buddies to go broke. He wants to be able to justify invading Venezuela for oil, and if we move away from oil-based plastics, then what are we going to use that crude for, you know? If we all have electric cars, what are we going to use that crude for? If we all have fucking solar panels on our roof, what are we going to use that crude for? So he's actively trying to destroy all of these initiatives so that his billionaire buddies can make more money. And that is costing us. That is costing us so much. It's costing us our health. It is costing us our breathable air and our drinkable water and our eatable food. It is costing us money. It is more expensive to have to do this than to just invest in green technology. It is more expensive to prop up these extremely expensive and damaging industries. Oh, right. Addison John says bioplastics have similar problems as microplastics. There's no magic bullet as of yet. I mean, biodegradable plastics is the difference, right? Like, it's fine if there are microbioplastics that are non-toxic and that will eventually break down in our systems, right? I find it hard to believe that biodegradable plastics have the same issues as microplastics building up in our system. Mika, you asked me the capital of Ecuador yesterday, and I still do not know. Fog War Production says DDR can either mean East Germany or Dance Dance Revolution. LOL. That's another problem with abbreviations, you know? Somebody said Leos yesterday for law enforcement officers, and I hadn't heard that abbreviation before, so I thought they were talking about the astrological sign, and I made a real ass of myself. Ms. Weaver, Lindsay Reed, thank you so much for helping me reach I think that was my second gift goal of the day. Alrighty. Let's see. Oh, no, we've already done finger hearts. That's got to be my first finger hearts goal that we just reached. All right, finger hearts. Version 2. Okay. Big Raspberry says, hot take, Trump is the most transparent politician in a while. Big Raspberry, I believe that is inaccurate. I think that it is inaccurate. I think that there are crimes that he is doing out in the open, but I do not believe that that counts as transparency. When they are blocking as much information, when they are fucking with the numbers as much as they are, like that is the opposite of transparency. Addison John says, I agree with you. I wasn't arguing, just adding a degree of complication. All right, fair enough. Lauren says, don't forget to send your daily heart me, like and share. I think that's a comment to the other commenters, right, Lauren? I don't know what that thing is or how it helps, you know. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. All right, let me get back over to these YouTube and Twitch comments for a second. Let's see here. John Starrow says, NK is Neture Carta, though. What the hell is that? Josh Sarah says, and that sounds like an anime character. Josh Sarah says, in this economy, best we can do is rent a liberal. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. Alrighty, what else we got over here? John Abbott says, I don't recommend reading the Calendar Girls document that they mentioned. It was one of the first I saw. When they released, I was sick to my stomach for most of the day after reading it. That's a real fucking bummer, John Abbott. Is there information in there that is damaging or definitively condemn? Is it evidence of a crime that Trump committed or somebody else committed? Or is it just a bad look? Let me know what you think about that, John Abbott. Fogwar Productions says, as someone from oil country, we use the oil to bury the oil. I completely agree with that. Let's make it happen. Mia's LV Adventure says both. So you read the Calendar Girls thing? So it's evidence of a crime by Trump or someone that's in Trump's orbit. Neture Carta is the ultra-Orthodox Jews who go to every pro-Palestine protest. They have interesting views. Oh, interesting. Yeah. You know, that wouldn't be the first time that I thought a Jewish name sounded Asian. You know, I used to, one of my old landlords was like Harakami or something like that, and I always assumed that it was like that was owned by like some Japanese people or something. Carmine says, "Okay, Thanos." That's pretty funny. Righty here. All right, yeah, things are slowing down, and we're almost at an hour. You know, so yeah, get in your final questions, everybody. Big Raspberry says he doesn't try to hide it. Yeah, but it does actively hide really important information. Big Raspberry, like we can't trust the jobs numbers coming out anymore. We can't trust the numbers coming out of DOJ or the FBI. Yeah, we can't trust anything that Pam Bondi or Kash Patel are saying, and they are actively keeping information from us. So 100% they are not transparent. All right, Mia's Lovely Adventure says, what was the book you recommended to me about economics? I totally forgot. Ooh, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Can you give me more information? Like there's the book Dark Money, but I don't know if that's specifically about economics. So yeah, let me know. Sorry for Tomorrow says, I've seen multiple people who were heavy MAGA who've renounced it. How do we use their change? Welcome them with open arms and respectfully ask them to be part of the movement instead of just saying, I don't think that we should be demanding that they do more, but I don't think that we should let them off the hook for what they've done in the past. So I think that we should welcome them with open arms, say, we are so happy that you have seen the light. We would love it if you would be part of the movement to actually undo some of this damage. We're so happy that you're not going to be voting for this anymore. And that in itself is a win. Welcome back. We're so happy to have you. The water's great. You know, hop right in. But I would ask you to recognize how what you have done has hurt people. And I would love it if you would join me in doing the work of trying to undo some of that damage. Lord X Jono X Goon says, what's the reason for nationalizing elections? There's no good reason for nationalizing elections. Trump wants to nationalize elections so that he can cheat, so that he can say that he won elections that he did not win. Sorry for Tomorrow says, forgive them but never forget what they did, kind of a thing. No, I think that we can forget eventually, but I think that we can too easily push people away who are trying to join the coalition. Jork says, is Gabbard a Russian asset? I think she's weird as hell. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't seen any definitive evidence, but I don't think that you go to bat for people like Putin and Assad if you are not, you know? The Fixer Mike says, apologies not accepted, donations and labors accepted. You know what? I'll take it. The Fixer Mike, I'll take it. I don't think we do ourselves any favors by being cute and by being dogmatic. But if that's the best that you got, I'll take it. You know, so long as you're not one of those people who's like, fuck you, you fucking idiot. I talk about this in my special. Do you guys watch my special? Do you guys watch the part about being productive versus doing things that feel good, you know? Alrighty, let's see here. John Abbott says, it is a victim claim about their personal experience with Trump that included his adult sons, Melania, Dershowitz, and other men. Noam testifying to Congress is actively lying and dodging questions, non-transparent. The water ain't great, it's cold, full of ice. Well, ice baths can be, you know, good for circulation. I mean, I'm sure a beautiful metaphor could be drawn from that. Ice baths are good for circulation. What ice is doing is terrible, but it is getting the blood cells of democracy and freedom circulating again, you know? It's not great. It's a little downplaying the damage that ice is doing. It's kind of suggesting that it's worth it, which it isn't. I'm just saying that the metaphor exists. I'm not going to down this mountain. D. Scott says, love not in a good way, just love the dots are being connected. I know what you're referring to there, but I generally agree with you, D. Scott, so I'm going to assume that that's on the level. Brian Barbita, how come you changed your screen name? I thought you were going to be Brian Politics or something going forward. Thoughts on New START treaty being extended via a handshake deal? I mean, you can't really trust either of the people on the end of that handshake deal. So, you know, that's not really worth, that is not really worth the paper that it's not printed on, you know? Brian Barbita says, I have 2 accounts. All right, well, that makes sense. Lord X Jono says, why has no consequences come from those in the e-files? So there are a couple of reasons for that. I think the most important reason to focus on is that currently the Department of Justice is under control of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, and say they don't give a shit about legal consequences for anybody that is on their team. It's like, yeah, they'll use it to go after Bill and Hillary, even if there isn't any substantive evidence in there of any wrongdoing. You know, maybe there is stuff in there that's like, woo boy, that sure makes it look like Bill Clinton was involved, but it's not definitive evidence. They will potentially try to use that to throw them in jail, you know? But if we want real accountability for everybody, whether you are a Democrat, Republican, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts, you need to replace the people who are currently in charge of the government because they are not going to deliver it. Full stop. And if a Democrat is willing to play ball, they'll bail them out of jail too. But Democrats like myself don't want Democrats who have done shady shit to be pardoned. I did not want Eric Adams' charges thrown out. Just because he's on my team, just because he's technically a Democrat, does not mean that I like it when people skirt accountability for breaking the law, for fucking corruption, you know? Okay, Eric Day says, why continue with this archaic tradition of hierarchy? Not really sure what you're referring to there. Rich Bao says, both parties don't care about immigration. That is inaccurate. The Democratic Party tried to do something about immigration, and the Republican Party killed it because they wanted to run on it in 2024. And that, in my opinion, completely delegitimizes the entire Republican Party. You can't claim to be a political party that is going to govern the country if you are actively making problems worse so that you can win elections. They have zero credibility on that issue. Democrats at least tried. Okay, Gunner says, Democratic Party does not care about immigration. That's why borders were so open. No, the borders were not open during the Biden administration. Mika Korb says, do you believe in your opinions 100%? I believe in facts 100%. And where I have opinions that are not, you know, definitive, I'm willing to learn and change on those. The Fixer Mike says, have you spoken about the UK shakeout and how swiftly they're acting? I have not read enough about that. But I just started digging into it. Gunner says borders were very open. I'm sorry, you're brainwashed. So Gunner, sincere question: how do you know that I am the one who's brainwashed and you are not the one who's brainwashed? I'm saying the borders were not open. You are saying the borders were open. One of us was right. One of us is wrong. So it could be that you're brainwashed or I'm brainwashed. How do you know that you're the one that is not brainwashed? Let's see here. Gunner says, because I look at both sides. I look at both sides too. But it's not important about looking at both sides. It's about looking at the facts of the case. It doesn't really matter what Republicans or Democrats are saying. What matters is what was actually going on the border. And the fact of the matter is, you still needed a passport to come into this country during the Biden administration. So the borders were not open. Okay, Watch the Gum says, you are wrong. What am I wrong about? Lord X Jono says, how do we get those that lie for Trump out of office? Same way that we get Trump out of office. We vote, we do the work, we protest, we strike, we boycott, we recruit, we convince, we do our canvassing, we join nonprofit organizations. That's the work, my guy. That is the work. Triskafon says, what do you think the Clintons will say? I have no idea. I think that they are looking at exactly the same evidence that the Republican Congress is going to be looking at. So, they'll probably say that obviously this was sketchy, but there's no evidence of any criminal wrongdoing here. Let's see here. The Fixer Mike says, a border easy to cross doesn't mean it's open. Dems still want legal immigration. That is accurate. Thank you, Fixer Mike. Watch the Gum. Still waiting for you to tell me what I was wrong about. Gideon Static Society says, borders were not only open, but people were encouraged to come in. That is inaccurate. Kamala Harris went to our southern neighbors and said, do not come. So, yeah, you're wrong on both parts, Gideon Static Society. Seth says, how has Trump's economic policy affected the economy? I mean, how has it not? He made disastrous decisions in his first term that caused the rampant inflation that we felt during the Biden administration. Oil and gas prices were high during the Biden administration because of mistakes that Trump made. Trump is currently fucking up our economy. We are way over leveraged in artificial intelligence while the employment sector is being destroyed, while the value of the dollar is being destroyed, while American manufacturing is decreasing and farms are going bankrupt and crops are dying on the vine. Gunner says, the Native American, African American, Mexican American, Chinese, Kamala? That's not a really good comment, my guy. Rena, excellent. Wait, what did Operative Kiwi say? Was he doing? I think he's the guy that was doing the anti-Semitism shit. All right, never mind. The Fixer Mike, great work, Rena, as per usual. The Fixer Mike says Trump is enriching himself by manipulating the stock market, and people think that's okay. Weird take. Yeah, I don't think that's okay at all. The Fixer Mike. Sorry for tomorrow says political office hasn't been a dream of mine, but I have considered doing so on the local level. I encourage you to do so, and you should check out a group called Run for Something. They specifically work with candidates under 40, but if you're over 40, they still have resources available to you. They just won't work with you like hand in hand the way that they will with other ones. Gunner says, well, she pretended to be all those races. We should respect her. Congratulations, Gunner. You have proven to me that you are completely full of shit. So you're out of here. Shork says, do you know why crypto is down so low? I don't know, and I wonder if it's all crypto or all non-Trump crypto. I wonder if so much money has been put into Trump's cryptocurrency that now people are moving to that one because they recognize how the corruption and the grift is increasing the value of that asset. But I don't know. I have no clue. I'm really curious about that. Glurp says, whatever happened to the Naked Cowboys' political aspirations? I have no fucking idea. JP says, the Watcher special, it was all about people fondling your balls. No, this is a little bit of it, obviously. John Abbott says, right wing insists that Dems are open borders, yet keep posting memes showing how many people Obama and Biden deported to say, why no protests? It's the Schrodinger's Democrats. It's catching on, Jab and Abbott. All of my great fucking political analogies are finally catching on. That's right. Democrats are simultaneously too far to the left, too far to the right, doing too much, doing too little, open borders, and also deporting more people than any president in history. Good Lord. Is anybody fucking tired of this shit? Is anybody else fucking tired of this shit, Fixer Mike says, only support crypto Superman's dog 100%. All right, everybody. Wendy, great to see you again. Thank you for being here, but we got to start wrapping things up. If there are any questions that you guys have that I was not able to get to on this live stream, DMs are open. You can email me through my website. I have a Discord that you can join as well. I love the Discord because there's great recommendations there for books, podcasts, and great work that we could all individually be doing to try to help us in this current moment. If you would like to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know we're all struggling. If you rich bow, that is not true. Both parties, one party has done something for immigration, and one party is making it worse. Trying to figure out which is which. Where was I? There are lots of ways that you can contribute financially if you like to, and if you have the ability to. For example, you can send gifts on TikTok, like my friend Sarah and Kim Buckman, who just helped me reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. You can also become a super fan or super subscriber on TikTok. You can become a subscriber on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free, and that helps me out a ton. So I'd really appreciate it if you did that. And you can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Special shout out to everybody who sent gifts on this specific stream, and to my regular subscribers, Grimacus, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, Patrick, Dan Blackroyd, and the two Seans, Lauren, Triska, Pliff, and It's the Rocketeer. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Glass1235 says, do you think Brexit was a good idea? No. Yo, Millie says, your opinion on Iran? I support the people. I'm against the government. TL says, Trump's crypto is a meme coin launched by Barron, market cap of $938 million, $324 coins value. I don't know what that means. Awesome Sauce says, is the Discord also open to questions about your lives? 100%. You can ask questions on the Discord. Alrighty. Crush Star says, I'm communist, both parties too far to the right because they support capitalism. I would disagree with that, Crush Star. I think that if you are a communist, then you are better served voting for Democratic politicians than Republican politicians. If you want me to go into more detail on that, let me know in the comments that you're still here. Tommy says, do you think Trump is CIA? No, I do not. John Jamal says, are you red or blue? I am blue. Awesome Sauce says, Turning Point pretended to hire Patriots for halftime. Might be the saddest thing I've ever seen. I don't know. That one Chris Rock concert, not Chris Rock, that one Kid Rock concert was pretty fucking pathetic. MAB3 says, what happens when the executive branch doesn't listen to the judicial branch's decisions? Well, then I guess we're at the next level of our constitutional crisis. Right. Let's see here. TL says, each coin of Trump's crypto is around $3 or $4. Down from 2 months ago. How interesting. Yeah, I'm out of the crypto space, so I don't know why everybody is selling. Perhaps people want to be cash rich right now because they see worrying signs in the economy, you know, the way that Trump's tariffs and trade wars and crypto coin and similar bullshit is destroying the American economy, you know, etc., etc. All right, everybody. Things have really calmed down here. Nikki says, thoughts on North Korea? It's a dictatorship, and so I am against it. Let's see here. Shork says, I have lost 30% on Ethereum in like 3 days. I'm really sorry to hear that, Shork. I would encourage people to not invest in sketchy online cryptocurrencies. They're all speculative products. Like there's no use case besides crime and speculation. Alrighty, let's see here. Carmine says, do you see Jelly Roll faking the political stuff? I haven't seen Jelly Roll doing anything. Is he pretending to be a Democrat or what? I have no idea. I might not be able to see your response. Real Bendis says, thoughts on Cuba these days? I mean, I think that I don't know if there's any developments in Cuba. I know that they're all struggling generally. Carmine says, when are you dropping your Bitcoin? I never had any Bitcoin. Let's see here. Lift the embargo, in my opinion. Yeah, 100%. It was way better during the Obama administration, of course. Carmine said, he said, I'm dumb. I don't know about politics. A lot of right-wing people do that. Steady, sweetie. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Same bat chime, same bat channel. Do the work and be good to each other. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.